Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership Heart podcast. And today I have Eric Newman on. I'm so excited. He's with Rock Solid Foundation. And I loved his background. I felt like it was definitely heart was embedded in it. His backstory itself is super interesting. And then the evolution of how he used the story and his journey to really move him into a place of a huge amount of impact in the world. So welcome, Eric. I'm excited to hear this story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited.
So tell everybody right now where you are in your leadership journey.
So where I'm at in my leadership journey, I think it's ebbs and flows, but I would say I'm on kind of the middle, which is the middle messy, meaning like the launch of the idea has gone from the organization that I started to where now we're in the middle. So it's the child that I have helped start is now starting to get into its teenage years. So it's messy, but the middle is supposed to be messy because no one likes change, right? But so change is hard, change is messy, but then it's beautiful at the end. So I would say I'm in the middle messy of my leadership journey. I just will not quit. So I think that's probably the easiest way to explain it.
So tell everybody a little bit more about kind of the organization that you founded. What is it all about?
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was in fourth grade, sold candy, had two backpacks. So I'm an entrepreneur through and through, owned a couple construction companies, and in 2008 ended up going belly up. And I asked myself what this one and only life was about. But before I started all the candy company and the entrepreneurial journey, I'm a cancer survivor. So when I was 3, I was diagnosed with cancer. They gave my parents a slim percent chance that I would be sitting here today. And so I also lost 2 cousins to this horrible disease. So been an entrepreneur, just feel like I'm called to do something different. And then here I am 16 years later, where back up 16 years, I started an organization called Rock Solid Foundation, where I just combined my cancer knowledge and my construction knowledge. And what was created was we love and serve the pediatric cancer community. It's a nonprofit organization to where we build hope for kids fighting cancer. And I build playsets in their backyards. Why playsets? Because when kids are diagnosed with cancer, they cannot go to public parks. So I'm using my pain from my past for a purpose for the future and hopefully creating some impact along the way.
And that's the reason why your message struck with me so much. I talk a lot about my journey, and I have a TED Talk I did in 2019 called Transforming Adversity into Opportunity. And when I read your kind of background, I thought, oh, that's exact. I love that so much. Like everybody loves kind of either an underdog story, somebody who's kind of, travailed past like all the hills and valleys and things of their life. And now they kind of used it for good. And I love the fact that you're using it for good because not everybody chooses to do that. And well, so putting that to good use is awesome.
Yeah, it's a constant choice every day, right? So it's not just a one, okay, I'm going to start this thing and I'm going to do good. It's every single day of like, for what I do is I get to lead an organization and I stare the belly of the beast in the face of pediatric cancer. So I have to choose that every single day. And I think that's why what you're talking about, your podcast, like leading with the heart side of it, because if you don't have a heart, you won't spend much time in this world because it's a lot easier to look the other way than it is to look at the belly of the beast. So, and again, I'm constantly torn between success and significance. But I think there's that thin line to where people can walk. What if you chase success to pour out significance? And I think that's the thread that I'm trying to pull, that I believe that most leaders can as well.
It's so interesting. So, I'm thinking about this world that we're in, and you talked about like staring in the belly, kind of looking at the thing that's not nice, not great, can be really ugly, hard to take, and just kind of deciding to lean into it. And I think about our world today and some of the divisive issues that are going on, and how I'm seeing how a lot of people are kind of not wanting to kind of lean in, not wanting to lean in, to understand, to see, to be a part of the messy that you talked about before. Most of us don't have that kind of stomach for it. So we run away from the thing that makes us, uncomfortable, that feels not good, that makes us maybe feel down about ourselves or the world or whatever it is. And so you're saying, I'm going to meet that emotion and I'm going to transform that emotion to something more positive for the kids who went through what I went through or going through, but when I went through as a kid, which I just love it, love it, love it. I mean, I just think there's just no higher calling than to do the work you're doing. Yes, I understand it's a nonprofit. I know it, makes you a living, all these things, but just that end mission of helping these pediatric patients find some joy in this face of, fear and all the other emotions that are popping in their lives all the time.
I think to truly help anyone, and this can be for-profit, nonprofit, like all of us have customers. All of us have. So my customer is a child and family fighting cancer. Your customer may be someone buying your product. But at the end of the day, like you get into business, entrepreneurs solve problems. So what problem are you trying to solve? But to solve a problem, to help someone in pig crap, you got to get in pig crap. So you gotta figure out what the problem is that you're trying to solve as a business leader or an entrepreneur. So no matter what it may be, we run Rock Solid like a Fortune 500 company. The only difference is that my shareholders are kids fighting cancer, and we try to make as much money. We run as efficient as possible. Why? So that my shareholders can receive more. So like I said, I'm an entrepreneur, and then I was in for profit for about 15 years. And then I was like a dolphin put in captivity, right? And I'm like, I'm in this nonprofit world. I'm like, guys, there's a whole world out there. Why are we running this organization like this? Why not try to run it like a for-profit company with making sure that we know who our customers are? So
I love that so much. And I'm assuming some of the work you do, can you gather testimonials and things like that from the kiddos or from their families about kind of the impact of what you put in there for them?
Yeah. We can't change the fact that they have cancer, but we can change how they fight. And we meet families where they are, and then we have testimonies for days and days. I have a phenomenal marketing team that makes sure that they keep the stories in front of me too, right? So that I know that we're still making an impact in the messy middle. So
I love that. And one of the things that it makes me think too is, I have people say this to me, and I'm going to be curious to know how you feel about this. So because of the stuff that happened in my childhood, and I'm the only child, I have like this strength about me, and this almost like I got to figure out a way of walking. Not that I do have it figured out, but I have this way of like showing up where people think, oh, she's just so strong and she's got it figured out. And I have to kind of back myself up and be like, not always and not mostly, you know what I mean?
Right. Oh, yeah.
I have to let people know that, because otherwise I get far ahead of myself, and then people just think there's no way they can help me, or there's no way they can, meet me where I'm at, because I've already got it figured out. Do you ever have that too? I sense that about you. You have this like strength, this kind of like I'm focused, this like kind of like vision, and right. And like, I don't know if anybody could feel like there's any way they can help you.
No. So I believe that the world is searching for people that are willing to get vulnerable and not always be right. Like, I believe that leaders would rather follow someone that's like vulnerable than always right. And so what I'm trying to do is, like, it's taken me a long time to even sit on these podcasts, and people call me a visionary. Like, I used to be like, whoa, what does that mean? Like, well, what I've realized is I used to get in trouble for being a visionary in school, meaning like I would daydream and I would think I see things as what they can be, not as what they currently are. And so I think that whole thing of like having it all figured out, it's a huge Ponzi scheme. Like I said, like from day one, how to start a nonprofit, I had to Google that. Someone called me a philanthropist, and I kind of jumped at him. I'm like, what'd you call me? Like, anything with "ist" on the end cannot be good. Like, they're like, whoa, calm down, dude. Like, calm down. Like, it's a good thing. So I for me, as our team, so we got about 24 people that work on our team now. And the best thing that I can do as a leader is to cast a clear vision, but also be vulnerable. I don't have it all figured out. I like to act like I have it figured out. I'm assuming, just like what you're saying, you like to act like you have it all figured out. But behind closed doors, like, I got my journals, I got my books, and I'm like trying to figure all this stuff out.
Yep. And I don't even think I liked it. I mean, sometimes I'm not even sure I like to be the person who appears to have it all together. It just is like almost like a natural defensive type. It's just it was a shell and the way I was just created based upon the adversity of my life. So I think, and I'm pretty sure lots of us who have that type of stuff, are just that way. And I think for you, like from being like young and in the health type, because mine wasn't a health thing, physical health thing. And I could just imagine how that created an outward shell that it's hard for me to explain it, because it just, my interaction with you just this short period of time is like the level of resilience and thick skin around whatever you might. So you might be like, it's going to hit me. Some of it might hit me hard, and it's going to put me down for like maybe an hour or a half a day. And then I'm on to the solution, kind of like you were just talking about, right?
You put me in a corner, I'm coming out swinging, like, because I am very solution based. My wife loves it too, right? So I'm like, well, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? And she's like, just listen to me. You can't fix this right now. So anybody listening, like, if you're a fixer, your spouse probably isn't a fixer. So then, like, just listen. So that's just free marriage advice right there. My wife is just like, I just need you to listen to me. You're not CEO here. I just need you to listen to me. You can't fix this. Just listen. So I think that's a good trait for a leader is just learn to keep your mouth shut and just to listen. And I get so much more out of people these days than what I used and how I used to lead.
Yeah, it's interesting because the work I do is around listening. That's kind of the main focal point for me. Caring, leadership, and listening are the two things I focus on.
Right.
And so, as you say that, you're preaching my language there for sure. So, amen. I think that as I go thinking about like all the things that are around us in this world, there's just so many reasons for us to express an opinion. There's just so many reasons for us to wait to respond. And instead of again having that full presence and taking it all in, like getting the essence of a person and try to step outside of our own shoes and into the shoes of the other and say, okay, like what are you going through? What's happening? I love again the fact that your organization has the mission that's focused on other. It's on other based upon your own filter that you had before, but it's based upon other. And then of course again, it's an organization that is, it's a nonprofit, but you're acting like you're working like you're for profit. So you want to be successful, you want to be sustainable. Right? And those are important.
Very, very important word in any business, right? You need to build a sustainability model, and a model is constantly changing, right? So how we sustain ourselves today, 16 years later, is not the same way that we sustained ourselves back then. So it's that marrying the mission, not the model mentality. But sustainability in any type of leadership position, any type of business, is probably one of the most important things that if you're just starting or if you've been around for 16 years, you really need to spend some time trying to crack that code.
It's interesting. I talk about kind of a change model for the work I do that requires first self-awareness and then this idea of kind of having desire for change.
Right.
So self-awareness that something needs to change, the desire to change, and then this like stamina or commitment for change. So that's that thing you're talking about, which is a sustainability component, that long-term view of like, what am I going to put in front of me that makes me want to keep at this thing called getting better, improving, whatever that might be. What is that thing for me? And so for you, as a strong self-leader, somebody who's saying, I'm going to lead myself well so I can lead the organization well so I can help to continue to benefit these kiddos in the end. What's your best and like biggest that you see as your most like sustainability thing you do as a leader, the thing that helps to sustain your commitment to the thing you're doing every day?
Yeah, so I mean, it's taken me a long time again to try to figure that out. But I do 7 healthy habits every single day that I know that I can accomplish. Either I travel a lot for work, for speaking, for all of that stuff. So I do 7 healthy habits every single day. So I can do it in a hotel room. So I make my bed, right? In a hotel room. People are like, why do you make your hotel room? Because I know that I can win, even if I feel like I failed the rest of the day. So I think for that, the sustainability, I do a big time meditation that I have to do self-reflection. I'm not that great at it yet. I've been doing it for about 2 years. I got about 13 minutes to where I can just kind of focus out. And it's got to be in a steam room. I know that's high maintenance, bougie, whatever you want to call it. But the meditation is something that's very important to me. And then mentors, having mentors around me, people that have been further. But now as I kind of progress through the messy middle, looking back to who can I help bring along with me too. So because it's amazing, no matter the age, like I can learn from all types of people, the race, the religion, like I can learn from everyone. So I'm looking forward, but I'm also looking backwards. Who can I help pour into as well? So just investing in people, my 7 healthy habits, and really just meditating and like learning to disconnect, which is still super hard for me. Like what fills your soul, right? What fills your soul is different than what fills my soul. Like, because I'm constantly pouring out, and every leader should be constantly pouring out. But I think every leader needs to figure out how can you pour more into your cup so that you can continue to pour out. Back to that sustainability model of money, sustainability model of mentality, mental leadership, whatever you want to call it. So I would say that those are the big ones. And then for me, I have what I call the walking stick of life that I lean on. And it's the questions of who am I? What do I believe and where am I going? And I ask myself those questions constantly, write them in my journal. I ask my team members that just so that we can all be aligned culturally too. So lean on the walking stick, 7 healthy habits, and a little bit of meditation in there is a couple ways that I try to sustain this leadership thing, which is very, very challenging.
Isn't it? It's so true. I say start with us, and the idea of the pour out, pour in concept. I talk about that a lot. It's so important. And as a mom of 4 kids and having the business, the podcast, speaking, all the things you're talking about, being on planes and blah, 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 thinking about those ways. And the habits that we create, the things that we do. Now, it's exactly what you said. What fills you up uniquely? It's not the same for every single person, but finding out what those things are and doing it and making ourselves a priority. And it's so funny because I talk about caring leadership and I'm talking about others so much. And so people sometimes get confused and I'm like, but wait a
Right.
second. They say, but wait, but you're telling me to focus on me, or you're telling me like it's all about you first, but you just told me it's about others. Huh? And
Yep.
yes, it's both.
It's yes and right. So and
Exactly.
I say it like you got to lead the me before the we. And so like
Hmm.
if I'm not healthy on the inside, I'm not going to be healthy on the outside, and then I'm going to create more leaders that are unhealthy, charging in maybe the wrong direction. So I think that what you talk on, like the pouring, the filling your cup up. How do you fill your cup up? I know I kind of flipped the script on you a little bit, but how do you fill your soul? How do you fill your cup?
You know what? I do have to make myself first. And so for me, it's like right off, starting off going to move. So I go to the gym or I go for a long walk with my husband. So
Right.
moving is important. Having also just like a little bit of downtime where I'm like having coffee and I'm able to like read or reflect or catch up on a newspaper or something like that. Super important. Being with the kids, just cuddling, like not doing anything particular, just cuddling and that physical
Yep.
contact. That's important for me. And then the spiritual side of things is also important to me. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily number them, but in the end, like if I'll feel good if in the beginning of that day I moved, I spent time with loved ones. I always like hydrate. This thing is like hydration is
Oh yeah.
extremely a way of literally filling myself up with goodness,
Yep.
and then just eating well. So I really just, those are important things for me. And I
Feel like
feel, and
you're
even
in
my
my
kids.
head. Like I feel like you're in my head. Like but it you start small though, right? So it's like,
Yes,
hey,
yes,
today I'm gonna just drink 6 waters or whatever it may
yep,
be. And I think what is it? Atomic habits, like habit stacking, like just
yes,
build the habits, right? But most people,
yep,
they're like, okay, if they're listening, I'm gonna go fill myself up, and they're gonna try this grand thing.
yeah,
Don't like start small, right? Plant
yep.
the seed and stack on top of it. So make your bed, right? I think an admiral said that. I heard that.
Yes, that's
I
exactly. I
heard it.
got it from him too. Isn't that
Yeah, so I
funny?
heard
His
it a long
impact.
time ago, but like just make your bed and just do that for like 3 weeks straight.
Yep.
And just then on top of that, then stack, then start moving the next day. Like I just think that the habit stacking is super important too for leadership development.
It really is. And the other thing is the things that you're doing, your children are watching you. And
One
all
that
of a sudden I remember when I started being real, like an avid mover, I call it moving because it just means like whatever I'm doing, whether I'm doing something in my basement, weightlifting, doesn't matter. And I remember my kids were small, like I'd have one of my kids, the other two would be 2 or 3, and they'd be over here and they would watch me doing videos at home. And I've been moving forever, right? But when I became much, much more into focusing on that movement and hydration, now they watch it. So now they're getting water, but all the things they keep. So they're watching those positive habits, they're emulating them, and they emulate the ones that aren't so good too. And
correct.
then it's up to us to change our habits. So then they start to change theirs. It's crazy how you don't realize how what you're doing in and out, how it just reflects both in the workplace with your team members, with inside your home with your
Yep.
team that's there, in the community, people kind of emulate. And so I always say, people go, well, I'm trying to be a good listener, or I'm trying to show more care, but that they're not doing that towards me. And I say, well, but you got to start with you first. You
Correct.
emulated enough, they're going to catch a fire with that, right? They
Yep.
just are.
That's good.
So yeah,
Really good.
it's very good stuff. Very good stuff. Thanks for asking that. All right, so now everybody can hear, boy, like how amazing you are. And one of the things that I always like to have guests share is a time when maybe you did not lead with heart, or a time when maybe the caring leadership, or like how you like to kind of work with people, or what you like to exhibit now, was not in play. What did that look like specifically? Maybe sharing a story, and then what did
Sure.
you do to kind of come out of that maybe darker time or a different time to one that was more enlightened?
Yeah. So that's we were talking about this earlier. Like there's a bunch of them for me. Not that I'm this horrible guy, but leadership is like the ups and the downs and the valleys. But what led me here is that in 2008, I think, or not, I think there was a curbside moment to where a guy owed me about a couple or $100 and some $1,000, and he said he was going to pay me. Said he was going to pay me, and then I found myself with like 2 cell phones around me, cell phones blown up, and that was the moment, my curbside moment, when I knew everything was over. So I lost everything. Lost my girl. It sounds like a horrible country song. Lost my girlfriend, which was my fiance at the time. Lost my trucks, my bulldozers, all of that stuff, and my dog legitimately died. Right. So I had this curbside moment, and as I'm sitting on this moment, realizing, knowing that everything was over, I'm like, how the fill in the blank, how we got here, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I put my identity in the construction company, And I had put my identity in being the guy that could pay the tab at the bar. I had put my identity in all of this stuff to where I honestly, like, if you would have met me 17 years ago when I was running that construction company, you would not have sat down across from me. All I cared about was money. People were an objective or an object to get to more money. And so for me, in that curbside moment, I was like, how did I get here? And for that moment, I lost everything because I was focused on the wrong thing. See, I'd put my identity in all that stuff. And when I lost all the stuff, the world was nowhere to be found, right? I was chasing everything that the world said I should have. But then when I lost all of it, the world was nowhere to be found. So I just cared about me in the wrong way, not in the positive way of what we're talking about from a leadership standpoint. And then the way that I flipped it, if you will, is I went on this discovery. Like, I stood up from that curbside moment and I said, there has to be more to life than this. And so it was not a huge transfiguration for me of like, oh, I'm going to start focusing on people. But I wrote down a statement about 15 years ago: focus on the people and the money will come. Focus on the people and the money will come. So I have to simplify everything, right? I boil everything down to like, keep it simple, stupid. Was it KISS? Keep it simple, stupid. But how I changed it is I just said that this conversation right here is more important to me. You are more important to me than what this podcast will ever produce. And if I handle each conversation in that fashion, when I'm sitting across from a donor, or I own a couple other businesses, right? So I'm sitting across from other people, like, I'm focused on the one, what I hope to do for the many. And so like that it's about people for me. And you can look at it, servant leadership. I mean, there's $1 billion business about it, right?
Yep.
But for me,
I'm a part of it. Yeah.
Me too. Hello, everybody. But meaning, like, if you focus on the one, this conversation, that one client, that one customer, that one child fighting pediatric cancer, that one staff member that's having a horrible day, focus on the one, what you hope to do for the many, you'll always arrive at the many. But if you miss the one, I can go do something else. I'll be the world's biggest custom home builder, right? So I know that was a long story, but man, I had a curbside moment and I did not like who I was. And side note, I did end up getting the fiance back. She is now my wife of 13 years. Woo-hoo! So yeah, I got 2 kids with her too. So people can truly change, but change is hard, change is messy. But man, in the end of it, it's a glorious, amazing thing.
Yep. Awareness, desire, and commitment, right? You have those 3 things you can change. If you don't have, if something's missing, you're going to have a problem.
Correct.
I totally believe that. And it's interesting, this idea of just, I've lately, for some strange reason, I keep going, why do I keep getting these epiphanies? Like epiphanies about maybe a way that I didn't do something really well, epiphany about like something that I was missing up to that point, but then I saw it, I no longer missed it. And I do think it's this idea of just full and complete presence in the moment. Because when I can be fully and completely present, I all of a sudden start to see like the nuances of what another person is saying, or the nuances of what's happening or what people are feeling in an environment. And now my awareness increases. Right. And so now I can decide if I want to go do something different or be somebody different, and before that though, if I'm walking around super distracted, my lack of awareness doesn't allow me to kind of go as deep as I have been, or having the epiphanies that have been there. And I'm like, why is it so clear for me right now? And it's because of that exact thing, totally present, so that the awareness just opens up, the universe where it opens up, my brain, my whole entire being opens up. And I know that sounds kind of strange in a way, but I mean, it's just something that's been happening lately. I talk so much about active listening and seeking to understand, but even for me, like there are these moments where I'm like, I don't care how much I write and talk about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing became as clear as day for me. And it's because, like you said, you're the most important thing. This thing is the most important thing in the moment. And there's nothing else that's more of a priority for me.
Right.
It's crazy.
I think I read a book. Again, I try to read 100 books a year. I have not achieved that goal yet, but I read it somewhere. Like every book you read, it adds 10 years of wisdom to your life. So I'm trying to be this super old, wise person. But the book was Present Over Perfect, or present is perfect, right?
Yes.
And so it goes with how I interact with my kids, how I interact with my staff, my team, my board of directors, business associates. Like the present moment is the perfect moment. And it's just a matter of, are you going to own the moment or are you going to miss the moment?
Love that. Love that so much. All right. Well, you asked me a question already earlier, so I don't know if there's another question you want
I
to ask.
do.
And
So
you do. Oh, okay. You get
very
to ask me a
curious. I'm a
question.
very curious guy. I think leaders should always be curious, right?
Yes.
Curiosity does not kill the entrepreneur. Curiosity fuels the entrepreneur, right?
Yep. Love it.
So I know that Simon Sinek likes start with why. That's a big thing. It's big on the industry, but why do you do what you do? And then for me, I would ask, so we already asked the sustainability. So why do you do what you do? Why do you care so much?
I do what I do because of what I experienced early on of not feeling heard necessarily or valued or important by parts of my family. And very long story short, my mom is white and Jewish. My dad is Black and Christian, and my mom's family wasn't at all happy about that kind of marriage. And I was a little black sheep of the family. I was never really allowed to go to family gatherings. My picture didn't hang on the walls and things like that of my
Wow.
grandparents' home. And so as a young child, I initially felt like I wasn't good enough, felt like I wasn't seen, I wasn't valued for who I was. And I knew at certain turning points in my life that I wanted to be the person who created the opposite in other people. I wanted to make sure that people felt seen, heard, and valued in my presence. And so I care so much because it starts from, just one portion of that story I told you just now of being a kid and not feeling that way. And so instead of going the other direction and putting people down and making people feel small and little and inconsequential, I just set out on that journey to make sure that other people, through the work I do, and I make it big and broad and deep, to make sure that they know that I have seen and heard them. So that's why it's important.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing. Like most people run from their pain, but your pain has a purpose. And so it's either, so for me, like I'm not going to flex. So, but I keep tally marks on my arm, that it reminds me, it's supposed to look like a jailhouse tattoo. It is, meaning that for me, pediatric cancer community, the pain, losing my cousins, all of that stuff from my childhood can either be my platform or my prison, but I have to choose every single day. Same thing for you is what I just heard is that you chose to take pain and now you're pushing it towards a purpose so that other people can feel that way. And I think that's it. That is the true essence of what life is about. If people can slow down long enough to lean into the pain. Now there's healing and there's a whole bunch of stuff to go with that. So I'm not that guy. That's a different podcast. You're not going to get that right now, but meaning lean into the pain, go through the process. And I'm telling you, the best things in life for me are right on the other side of that pain.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yes. All right. So for those who are listening now, you've already given some great nuggets, I think, some things to be thinking about, things to live by. What might be a couple of pearls of wisdom for those leaders that could that are kind of entrepreneurs and going through a struggle, or leaders in a company, whether they're mid-level, kind of frontline executive, and they might just be at a crossroads. I mean, there could be some, what do you think would be kind of a couple big leadership perks to their week, that really help to set the course for them? What would be good, some good pearls of wisdom from you to them?
So as a leader, I think, and I mentioned the questions earlier, these are the three most important questions that you can ever ask. Who am I? What do I believe? And where am I going? And so then from there, if you can answer those three questions, then lead the me, right? But then the we, how it transforms is where are we going? What do we believe? And who are we? That's the values. That's your identity, right? And that's the direction of strategy. So I think as a leader, because you're going to be inundated with the risk assessment reports, depending on the P&L reports, the budgets, you're going to have the up months, you're going to have the low months. I have never been okay. Like if your business is flat, you're like, how are we going to fix it? If your business is in decline, you're like, what are we going to do? And then if your business is skyrocketing, you're like, how are we going to get it all done? The anchor in all of that is those three questions. Because if you can answer those, I promise you at any turning point, at any crossroads, that you will be able to navigate the ups and downs of business. Because it's not a sheer trajectory up. It's we go up, we go down, we go around everywhere. You have to just go through. And so I think I would honestly encourage you to get some mentors, people that have been there before you. There's been one of the huge success for me. And then also just leaders or readers, right? And I know that's cliche, but just read, and then ask for help. Don't be so full. Don't allow your pride to hold you back to what you're truly called to do.
Well, the people who listen to my show, they read because I have a lot of books and I keep writing books. So they better be reading.
Keep writing.
They better be reading them.
Yeah, that's great. They
I
better
think
be
it's so
reading.
critical. Yeah. Well, I think you're right. Because even if they're not physical, like I do a lot of audiobooks as I'm doing the moving I was talking about earlier.
Right.
So I read through audio mostly. Of course, I write and I do the audio myself. So all of those are super important, I think, for growth. I 100% agree with you. I love the fact that you give them the three questions, and of course the mentorship. I'm trying to get better at this. I am personally, like, because I am an only child, because I had that and other stuff going on in my childhood, it made this like a certain sense of self-reliance, very high
Right.
level of self-reliance. And so because of that, it's harder sometimes for me to like be a joiner or like hire. I've been doing better though, hiring coaches
Good.
and things
I'm
like
proud
that.
of you.
Yes, I'm proud of me too. I'm proud of me too. So just doing more and more of that, I think it's very, very, very crucial. So, well, I am so excited, Eric, that you were able to join us, and I'm glad that we both could kind of align up here and that you could deliver such wisdom to those who are listening right now. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thanks everybody for listening to the Leadership Heart podcast. Be well.